So that's here. I'm live. Now I need to spam it. I thought it was gonna put free thing, but I guess that's a lot to ask for. So hello everyone. I'm about to share the stream everywhere before I start doing stuff. So let's start with gonna mix a song together. Paper Mario and the 1,000-Year Doors. Oh yeah, my chat's totally not gonna work. Might be able to change that somewhere. Just know. Okay, I'm gonna pop that up. Cool. And then walking through my process and answering any and all of your musical mixing questions. That feels poignant enough. And then live. Gotta go through the live tab everywhere. I think. Go through. Yeah, for reasons that are probably obvious, I always mute the streaming. Feedback. Excellent. Okay, so if you're rewatching this, I'll probably have to make a timestamp right about now where I explain why I am taking forever to get started here. But I hope this serves as a tutorial, hopefully kind of like a, what do they call them, a breathing, living document or whatever. Because this is just how comfortable I am mixing in 2024. So if you're watching this and it's 2030, that's a problem. Don't do that. You know, watch the updated version of this. But if not, then wonderful. I think we're good to go there, and that should be fantastic. I'm just gonna dump this on one more social media platform for now, and just kind of see how this goes, because I'm streaming on YouTube for what I'm gonna pretend is like the first time, but it's like the first time in 8 years. Looks like it wants me to stream higher at 6,800 kilobits per second. So I'm probably gonna kick out my cat in a second here. Let's try that again. Alrighty. I'm also gonna record this. Let's see how that goes. And let's see if I can pin this. And I'm gonna quickly see how the latency is, just for the hell of it. So I'm gonna wave here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it's a little bit behind, which I'm told I can actually change the latency, but we're on low latency, so hopefully that's not too bad. go. And again, if this doesn't like work out so great, I can always switch to like YouTube's or something. But I just wanted to see what it would be like if I tried doing this. And YouTube, since I've been recommended it as a platform for streaming, you know, because I'm already a YouTuber by nature. So anyway, I'm gonna kind of like get started a little bit, and then as folks come in, I'll probably end up repeating myself a little bit. So that's gonna be kind of fun here. Hey, don't run off, just in time. I think audio is working here, and I'm gonna try to keep my playback volume low enough to where it doesn't get too loud. Giaco, how are you doing? Hope everyone is having a wonderful Monday. It's weird to do a Monday stream, but also I literally have more free time right now to do it than ever. So yeah, this is an idea that I've been wanting to do, and I've done this before, but I wanted to basically do a production stream from start to finish that was kind of like specially catered and made with new folks in mind, or just people who want a fresh take on mixing. Kind of see what would it be like if you sat down with the only goal of mixing a song and making an existing recording sound comfy. So I didn't want to do something super aggressive, crazy metal, but I also didn't have too many like volunteers yet to send me live recordings. So I'm hoping to get there after doing this. Taladar, how are you doing? So yeah, what I wanted to do is basically answer and talk about mixing and my experience so far, having done this for about 10 years and going from hopelessly new and pretty bad to hopefully acceptable, and getting a lot of professional experience now mixing, being hired to mix bands, and getting my hands dirty with a lot more music than ever. So what I need from you all basically is, what are your questions, thoughts, challenges you have with mixing? And of course, anything that is on the screen or that you hear that you're confused or curious about, please ask it. I'm recording all this. I'm going to start making like a series, if I can, of these. And if we end up enjoying streaming on YouTube, if it works better, then I would love to continue doing that here. Resonant frequencies. Are you hearing that? Because that might be my Yeti microphone, in which case I will be kind of careful. The window's open since it's very hot today, but we're going to do our best, and I'm just going to scooch in closer. So, to start, what we're looking at is a cover I made literally like 30 minutes ago, maybe an hour. Oh, something you struggle with. Okay, sure. I think when it comes to resonant frequencies, if you're very sensitive to those specific frequencies, then you might want to start listening for them using EQ and cutting them out, even if it's aggressive. Just do a huge EQ cut, see if it goes away, and start narrowing down certain areas that resonate more, or especially if you're listening with speakers or headphones and you notice those particular speakers or headphones push certain frequencies more. And that way you'll always know that, oh gosh, this thing is pushing 300 hertz too much, and too much bass is coming through, or low mids, usually different middle frequencies. And then you can kind of compensate for them. But yeah, so here's an overview. It's from Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. It's the battle music that you hear very early on, so no real spoilers. And what I wanted to do is kind of go over the project here and what I like to do when I'm mixing, especially if someone sent me a mix and said, hey, this is my recordings. I would very much like you to mix it. So you download it, you drop everything in. What does that look like, and how do we best get this to sound good? So I'm actually going to mute this, and I'll explain what my project layout is real quick, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about the writing or whatever. This was a great suggestion from Don't Run Off, and it's a game I'm playing a lot of, and it has just enough interesting instruments that I could quickly record some guitars and bass and write a drum line and have something. So if you make music that is rock adjacent or pop, if you have bass and percussion and guitars or pianos, I think most of this mix will help with your own music. So what I like to do is I create a mix bus, usually for like a core group, like a band. So drums, guitars and rhythm instruments, pianos can go here, and bass, and that's usually it. Because I do lead guitar as my centered like voice, the most important kind of sound in my mix, I like to make sure that we're compressing that and we keep it included. But things that are less important to me, I put in a separate track. And these are all folders. You can call them buses. In Reaper, they're all just different tracks that you can send into. It's a way to categorize. So we have two little boxes, and I'm putting in the more important box, the guitars, the bass, the drums, the things that are really selling the band sound. And then in the effects box, this is something that my buddy 16 Mono taught me. I like to put in sound effects, synthesizers, pads, things that are filling out the music or supplementing it, but are really not as crucial, and they're also going to be processed. Everything is a track in Linux. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, it's all about categorizing. So if I were to just show the song, I'll play the first 15 seconds. So that's kind of what I came up with as a very basic sort of thing. And I will say, I tried so hard not to, let's call it, cheat this stream. I wanted it to be from the ground up, how to mix everything as if you just dropped it in. Hello, Heisey, how are you doing? So yeah, basically, this is a simple song. This is like, let's say this is like maybe the average VGM cover growing up. And yes, there's going to be a lot of unmixed stuff. Good, because this is not mixed. This is how your project probably will sound like if you just recorded and didn't worry too much about any processing, any EQ, compression, and we just started from scratch. This is what it would sound like if you sent me your song and asked me to mix it. So that's the perspective I think everyone should kind of try to have and give a shot, as if you just received this, fresh mind, you didn't record this. This is just music in front of you. There's also a lot of MIDI because I made this in like 30 minutes and I didn't want to, like spend too much time here. I wanted to make sure I could stream today. And recording while streaming would be a little bit annoying. But so yeah, to start, this is a simple kind of rock, sort of light funk beat. There's bass, there's guitars. And most importantly, it doesn't sound mixed. And just as part of this video series, I want to make sure I'm using language that's very universal. Yeah, I mean, it could have a little bit of ska in there too. There's horns, there's guitars and things. When I describe sounds, tones, I notice a lot of people use different words, and it can be really confusing if you're new to it or if you've just never heard that term. So I'm going to try to keep things universal, but the mix to me sounds not like the real one, the official one. It doesn't sound like that, but there are more kinds of music than the actual soundtrack, and one of the things I always like to emphasize with my covers is we're not trying to recreate that original soundtrack every time, because I'm trying to push my musicality, my guitar playing, my prog style, the arrangement. Most of that doesn't matter right now because we're just mixing it, but when it comes to references, which is pretty much one of the most important things for producing stuff at home, we need to have some ideas in mind. Some songs. Yeah, blurry is a good word too. It's not clear. It's not harsh. It's not punchy. It's just sounds that are kind of being made together. And that's because there's literally nothing happening to unify any of the sounds together. That's our job, to mix it. So basically, I'm going to start with the mission that I want this to kind of sound sort of like a modern rock performance of a simple band. I want it to sound like 4 people and then like a keyboardist, so 5 people. And to achieve that, that means we'll probably not use a lot of sound effects. We may not use a lot of layering of instruments. We won't throw a million things at it. But you should be able to sound as good as, bands from 1960s and 70s who only had a few tracks, at least on paper. This is just a little bit of me rambling about my philosophy, but we need to have something in mind or else we're not going to know what we're mixing towards. And it's okay if you don't know. You can just kind of experiment. But having, decades of music to inspire and suggest ideas is going to be revolutionary when it comes to actually mixing. And if you hate mixing, this is one of the ways you can kind of work on that. You can get closer and closer to a real song in your mind. So going top to bottom, we have the band bus again, which is just a bunch of guitars, and I didn't even use all of these tracks, so I'm going to delete all the tracks that we're not using. And then I actually had some MIDI here, and I'm going to get rid of all of that because we don't need it. And then I'm going to explain every single thing otherwise. And this is kind of a template. And see, what's nice is we can listen to references on YouTube if they're of the original VGM song, but I also didn't use that in the project. I found a MIDI just to save time. Usually, if I'm in a hurry and I really need to reference the original song, I'll throw it in the project as well and line it up, but I don't think that's a really good way to arrange. I think it's a really good way to make a cover quickly. So if you're trying to get creative with the structure of the song and the style, I don't recommend doing that. But if you are mixing towards the original, there are a lot of great tools for referencing, of course. So you can use things like tonal balance control. You can use ozone and just drop in the song and have your mix adjusted to that one. Within reason. It's not amazing because you still have to mix the insides of the song. But this is basically what I would call the starting place. So let me go through what we're using really quick, because I know gear questions come up all the time. It's a really fun topic, but I don't want to spend too much time there. So I programmed this entire thing in Get Good Drums Periphery 5 kit. It's one of my favorites because specifically it just has the right amount of cleanup and processing on the kit before you hear anything. And that's also a really important distinction. I can screw with your stereo image if you're not careful. That's interesting. Yeah. So far we have just basic punched in drums, and when it comes to velocities, I'll just say quickly about MIDI. Every single drum sound and mix style and drum library will have different sweet spots that they kind of do all their demos hovering around. Some of them sound really good at 120 to 127, which is the highest, of course. And others, it just sounds like you should almost never need that hit, and you should keep everything lower. So I tend to try and avoid any spikes and try to find that sweet spot, and that way I can just keep writing my music and not have anything sound unrealistic. So what I did here is I have an instance of Contact 7, and we're using Get Good Drums P5. It's just the same kit that's used on the song Wildfire, and there's a great tutorial by Get Good Drums explaining the kit, the specific pieces, why they chose the cymbals that they did, the snares, and also, of course, there's just minute amount of processing at most. So this is basically a preset. And the reason why I bringing this up is because within the VGM scene, a lot of us are younger or just in general don't want to waste too much time, trying to get super ultra realistic sounding drums, because the average drum chain for an acoustic drum kit to get into a metal scene is 7-8 plugins long. If you're not willing to commit to that, then to get a sound that's already kind of clear and metallic and carved out, we're doing all this processing so that you just get that simple sound. So I recommend just using a preset until you're like actually mixing. And if you don't want to get into production super deep, this has been pretty reliable for me at least. Anyway, so drum microphones, I don't think I touched anything when I started this song because it's a preset, but kick in microphone, which is of course just like where the microphone is actually placed, versus outside, they have different qualities, and your room sound and how much space that drum kit will occupy can be determined a lot by this. Overhead microphones can also pick up a lot of the kick sound and give you that like bigger, roomier tone, which I like for modern rock, especially, where you might actually have that kind of space. So listening to like really great rock mixes will be a better opportunity to hear that. Or anyone just using the same kit. Again, there's so much resources for every piece of software you buy now, or someone's just made a tutorial with it or a mix, like I'm doing right now. Same with the snare. I don't really use the snare bottom mic too much because that rattly sound can kind of block a lot of other instruments, and I like my snares kind of up front anyway. So keeping that down just makes sure that we occupy enough space in the mix that I want. Toms are all kind of default, and I just apply one, usually just one or two effects to control toms if they're sampled. If these are live drums, I have a different approach based on just like a lot of trial and error. And then cymbals. Cymbals, I kind of just try to bring the hi-hats down to where they're evened out, but this is still a preset, true and true, through and through. So yeah, and then, you know, just all the cymbals and spot cymbals I tend to kind of like keep low-ish, so that they're not, you know, in the way, they're not, you know, harsh on the ears. That's really important to me. And then as far as wideness goes, I don't mind these actually going a little wider than how it's set up in the preset here. So I'm going to make the overheads what I'm assuming is like 78. But it doesn't hurt to have them a little closer because the guitars are already stereoized so much. Maybe I'll bring that back. And then, yeah, same for the rooms. So there's not too much going on in the drums before we get into the processing. One of the things I absolutely have to share and document here is, so look up how to route your drums before you start making music, or just use the preset in one file, because that's going to be a pain in the butt. But with Contact 7, at least, and 6, I'm pretty sure, if you get good drums, you're able to route them pretty quickly, and I like putting them into their own categories. I don't need the individual mics. I don't think I'm that good. So follow a tutorial, get a track template, and then I route out the kick drum, which you can hear. Oh, I just realized... I didn't realize this isn't even a public stream yet, which is why there's so much fewer people than I expected. How do I make this public? Strange thing. Man, this is so unintuitive. I'm gonna give a point to, nope. I'm gonna give a point to Twitch. It seems much more obvious. There it is. Go public. Done. Save. Cool. We got 5 viewers just on the Discord alone. Alright, early joiners. Let's call it that. Hey, Patty. Okay, I don't know why you were unable to chat, though. That's weird. Only saw the Discord notification. Well, hats off to you. I really appreciate that. So, once again, hello. Happy Monday. Also, this is my new studio. Mine and Allison's setups are back-to-back now. She's not here because I am streaming mostly. But yeah, it's a place. So, Getting back to our mixed drums, and if anyone just joined because this is public now, hello. We're mixing a very simple song, a very simple light rock song, the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door main battle music, and I basically made this 30 minutes ago to start streaming much more often on YouTube, and kind of as a sibling partner series, I guess, to the community feedback streams that I'm very much hoping to get started super soon. I might do those Fridays or Saturdays, depending on who's free and when. But yeah, we're going through the project as if someone just sent this over, or you open the project and all the recordings are done. And it's a separate project, we're gonna pretend. So, yeah, the drums, the MIDI, get routed out into their respective categories for each microphone. So you can listen to the kick drum, and this is what it sounds like raw. Now, if you play drums, please attest, this is not how a kick drum microphone will sound. This is processed, and what that means is that it's gone through effects. That's all it means. People like using the word processed a lot, especially people who hate on cheese. But basically, kick drums will sound thum, 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 and it'll be boomy and gross, and you'll be like, wow, this is horrible, and my mix doesn't sound good. Why? And I never thought about it, but this is the difference between if you buy like Superior Drummer 3, or if you buy Get Good Drums, or if you get like a very raw sample library, or if you just play drums and you've heard your own recordings. And some people have sent me live drums that sounded really great for the genre. But for rock, if we have this huge thumping kick drum instead of this nice, like, you know, direct one with very short release time, let's say, you know, after you hear the thick, that's kind of it. It fades out very fast. So that way, it's not going to occupy space in the bottom. We're going to hear more of the bass guitar. So that's why a good kick drum recording, or in this case a sample, sounds the way it does. Likewise, we have a snare drum. We have overheads, which are just microphones hung over the drum kit, with the benefit of kind of controlling how much cymbal sound we get. And then we have toms, which is just all of the tom drums on the drum kit. And then we have a room we have the room category, which has a few different room microphones for Get Good Drums. And then I have this extra snare reverb track that I created afterwards. So we're looking at about 6 tracks. See how that works. Cool. All right, that's how you moderate on YouTube. And eventually I will figure out how to do that. So basically, I like categorizing the drums, and even just listening to the drums on their own, it's really nice to have like a focused sound. Like, this is what the drums are all going to sound like together. And I can just kind of pull back some of the different kick drum, you know, elements. And the reason why I like doing this gain staging early is just so that I always know how the kick and snare drums are going to be leveled, which I like them almost about the same and up front, and then the cymbals below and the rim below, and the toms can be also kind of close to the kick and the snare, you know, the shells as they were, so they're even. And this is stuff I've been trying to like verbalize for myself to understand. The reverb I like for snares, I've been using this Valhalla room that Allison actually has, so I'm borrowing that, I guess. Well, it's both of ours. And it's nice because it's really cool for hearing that hall sort of sound where the snare will last a while. But for faster rock, I'll just turn down the decay, so you still get that pa. And it's like, it's a way to kind of pull it down, the decay. But not stay forever. So like in metal, I like having really reverby snare drums, so you get the bum 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 ka, and like it kind of decays a little bit slower, and I feel like that's more impactful. You really remember each hit, but you don't always want that So it's good to kind of find a balance depending on the song, the speed of the song. So that's kind of what the drums look like, just as far as what has been recorded or given to us. Pretend that someone played that. Now, I've been categorizing my guitars under one bus, and then each one of them has their own little sub bus. So the lead guitars, which are usually just playing melodies, or they're playing like supplementary like harmonies, depending on the song. But with VGM, a lot of it is arranged in this like lead guitar on top style, which is like, you know, if a singer was your lead guitar, that's basically the philosophy and approach. So what that means, I think, is our references need to come from that world. And if your reference for a mix is like, you know, someone's lead guitar really loud and then like a really quiet backing band, that's what your mix is going to sound like. So I like using Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, even Yngwie Malmsteen, Eric Johnson from like the 80s as my inspirations for arrangements and having the lead guitar up front. Especially for this kind of a track, it's very like light rocky, like. And yeah, like there's not that many layers right now, so we want a mix to sound full and fun and like our references in mind, but we don't have a billion tracks going on. If you look at Nail the Mix from Intervals, if you look at different instrumental bands today, Animals as Leaders, they have a lot of layers going on, so the mix becomes much more surgical, I think, and we don't necessarily have to go for that with a song like this. Once again, if you're walking in or if you're just chilling right now, and if you have any mixing questions that you think I could answer, or we could just discuss as a group, please throw them in, because this is a community stream. This isn't just watch Ro make a song that he's probably not going to release. So, you know, by all means, I think this is meant to be not intimidating, and I really hope it stays that way. Anyway, so the lead guitar, I recorded a DI signal or a dry signal into my interface. I have a Antelope Audio Zen Go that Ian Cowell kindly sold to me. Fine interface. All of them are about the same as long as you don't have any bugs or weird noises or clipping. So you can see from my signal, we have a lot of spikes. Those are all like my little transient notes. But one thing I want to point out is when mixing or before you mix, include a stage called editing in your brain if you like workflows. And then consider making your recordings as good as possible. They should be laughably easy to mix. And I am basically correcting all of my mistakes by saying that right now. Like, I have recorded stuff and tried to fix it with the mix a million times. But yeah, like getting your timing right. And even here, I'm like, if I zoom in, I can see it. Now, some people don't want to do that, and some genres don't demand that. But for rock and modern metal, we really do benefit from having tight timing recordings. Even if it's bluesy and swung, make sure that they're aligned. Make sure that if you play a part twice for stereo, make sure that they are timed well. Move it, fix it. It'll sound better. You'll thank yourself. It doesn't take that much longer. And your tracks look so much prettier when you go to mix. So, again, it's a very dynamic recording because that's just the player I am, I guess. And yeah, make sure that your MIDI sounds good. Don't expect it to be like perfectly easy to mix if you haven't done all of your velocity curves, your expression curve especially, volumes. Do everything before you get into the mixing phase, which is what I wanted to share here. I've done that, except for that one fix I did just now, and my lead guitar on its own, just for many people who maybe don't know how guitars are, you know, recorded and what they sound like before. Yeah, that's really quiet. It's probably like so much quieter than my voice that it was probably hard to hear on the stream. So this is what a guitar sounds like basically before it goes through amplifiers. Now, I love Fractal hardware. And like for example, this is the floor unit I used live. It's a Fractal FM3, and I promise I'm not speaking down to anyone. I want to make sure I define everything that I'm using and talking about very clearly for anyone who's new. Amp sims, or these big hunking hardware things, they're all pretending to be this, real amplifier that takes your sound and cranks up the volume and runs it through different kinds of hardware effects to carve a sound that is pleasing to us. And eventually that sound has grown into adding distortion, where we run it through circuits to get that nice fuzzy sound. And of course you have different equalizers to make it boomier and bassier, or maybe brighter and harsher, tinier, louder, whatever. So all of these things, there's a million of them. I'm never going to really be able to tell everyone, buy this. This is why your sound is bad. No, that's crazy. You should find whatever works. There are people who use free plugins and sound better than me every day, and I have to live with that fact as I buy more stuff. So please, entertain the magic of trying out different things, and don't believe neural is the best. Don't believe bias is best. Just use whatever you want, and if you don't have it, you don't need to buy it. You might like it. But yeah, the reason why I bring up the Fractal, of course, is normally I record into my Fractal Axe-Fx, which is a big box that has all of these amp simulations of like 200 different kinds of real world amps, and they sound just like them, and it's fantastic. But I can't record dry in my current setup through the Axe-Fx, so I wouldn't be able to change my sound. However, with this, by recording into a computer with an interface, I can change anytime I want. So right now, I'm just using the Archetype Pliny X by Neural DSP amp sim, because it has a little bit more of that like classic rock, brighter sort of sound, and that was kind of what I was going for here, more of a vintage sound. And normally, if I could use my Axe-Fx, I would go for like a Marshall JCM amp, something that's a little like hot roddy, I guess I would say, but more classic rock. For my Axe-Fx, my tones usually come out of the 5153 simulation, which they call the 6160 for some reason. But I love that. I love Eddie Van Halen, so I just happily resonated with the 5150 style amps. I also like the Friedman amp simulations. They're really nice as like a hybrid between really bitey, modern, sharp kind of guitar tones, but also they have a little bit of that warmth. When you lower your volume on a guitar, especially on the volume knob, if you get like this nice kind of halfway sound, usually that means to me that the amp and the pickup are actually quite dynamic. But many sterile guitar sounds through like really high gain amps maybe don't have that, and for the kind of playing I do, that's something I miss. It's a quality I miss. But anyway, so this lead guitar that I played for this cover uses the Pliny Electric Sunrise lead preset here, which is of course a song that's been written by guitarist Pliny, and it was a good start. I didn't feel the need to adjust almost anything. And if you mix a lot of real guitar players, or if you don't but you want to, ask someone to send you dry recording, or just Google and find some dry recorded guitars, run it through a plugin, and just sit there and play with the different controls in the knobs and kind of associate what's happening when I turn the gain knob just now. The preset, by the way, had the gain knob a lot higher, so I pull that back. And that way you hear more of like the actual notes instead of the fuzz. Likewise, I could turn up the presence here. And if I turn up the presence knob, you're getting a lot of like the absolute high end. So it just cuts through the mix a little bit better. But we're listening to it isolated that way too. So So dialing back some of the mids, which you can kind of hear stick out a lot, that's a way to also compensate for the particular guitar, the particular pickups, the electronics, and it ends up cutting through a little bit better. But if we pull away all the mids, it kind of gets scooped out completely. So, but this is also the amp itself, so we have other controls. One thing you can do, of course, is choose different kinds of microphones, different kinds of what are called IRs, or impulse responses, which are just basically files that help a computer or whatever, the recordings that can help explain a reverb situation, as I'd put it. So cabinets for guitar amps to run into, or reverb spaces. Some people make IRs of their studio, of their room, of auditoriums, and then you can load it. So there's all sorts of really great suggestions, and again, no really terrible wrong choices. After the cabinet in Archetype, we also have an EQ section, so it's great for kind of carving out more of that sound. And I did like what happens when you dial back some of the mids here. So let's take a listen to the solo section real quick. Is this even on? Yeah, it's on. Huh. Oh, there we go. And one thing I missed is before we get into an amp, the signal chain is guitar into Archetype, where the pedals will come first, and then the amp, and then the cabinet, and then the EQ, and then post-effect pedals. So right now I have a compressor and a drive pedal. It just pushes the sound a little bit more. I like having that for most of my application, but for older school rock, and just getting like a clear band sounding mix, I don't think we need it as much. So the drive is dialed back. Yeah, let's hear without the drive pedal. So this is isolated with it on. And off. On. Off. On. So it's a little subtle, but one other huge factor here is if you're recording into the tone, sometimes it helps to hear the extra harmonics, the extra drive, the distortion. It makes playing different, and whatever it takes to get a good recording and a performance is worth having, just to have. And then you can always adjust. You can take it off when you don't like it anymore. And that's the same tone I have going on for the harmony track here. And the only difference is I have a doubler option in the Archetype Pliny. What this does is it clones just 6 milliseconds later your recordings and pans them hard left and right. And this way it gets out of the way from the lead guitar, but you still get like this really nice sound going on. None of these pedals are active because I just wanted it to be like kind of dried out. And I already know I can't hear it, so I'm gonna bring that up a little. I can make that brighter, maybe. Oh, there is someone just jogging upstairs. Interesting. So yeah, we have the lead guitars there, and yeah, going back to just going over the recording process, I have something similar for the rhythm guitars. I wanted this to be kind of like modern sounding light funk. So the guitars are just playing kind of simpler chords. It's recorded on a different guitar than the lead guitar. It's my Stratocaster, and this one's kind of fast because I'm playing like sort of double time ish. It's 138, and I'm playing like 16th mutes, so it's quite fast for my hands. This one's running into a different amp. This is literally just a random preset that I made off of a tutorial from Archetype Nolly, and this one has a drive pedal. I probably don't need it. I'm actually gonna turn on a compressor pedal and see how this sounds on its own. Off, on. So I do like it on, and the strategy I'd suggest here is keeping this set of rhythm guitars kind of lower than the lead guitar, but making sure that when we listen to both together, they're not getting blocked by one another. So and that means volume, of course, is the easiest one. And then the shape of like our tone is going to be a little different here. So the amp itself, I have like pretty low gain, just 2.5. And I also don't think this guitar is necessarily like as bright. So the tone is also not going to be too bright. I might bump the gain back up. And this amp probably isn't the best choice. Let's see. Oh, that's a clean amp. Let's try. No, I thought this is the one that you would. Here, let's. So I've adjusted the gain to be a little bit higher. Bass, middle, treble. Persona doesn't have a lot of like hard rock in this tone, but they're kind of closer to the British crunch when you think of songs like Rivers in the Desert, so that could be useful. Again, I try never to reference VGM. I try to reference what VGM is referencing. So actual funk stuff, bands and artists that have recorded, just because they're usually focused on making like listening mix and not game mix, which tends to be like, I think, more relaxed and reserved, but sometimes it can be quite useful. It's just up to taste, of course. So yeah, we've switched up the amps, and I actually like that a lot. Now, one other thing I'm using here that I should show, let's make sure we're not clipping, is I'm running Archetype Nolly, but I turned off the cabinets so I can use this GGD Studio Cab plugin, and I just got this one because they created a Studio Cabs Contenders Round 1 pack, and it's just full of tons of really good presets with what has been considered a lot of really popular cabinets across, you know, years and years and years of famous recordings. They narrowed it down to like the best 8 and basically just went nuts on the recordings, on the microphones, and there's a ton of controls here, but what I love about it is you don't have to use any of them. You can just take a listen and pull out a preset, and they're all kind of pre-EQ'd. So that's without the EQ, and that's with it. So it just kind of rounds off the ends. And I don't even know which preset this is because it doesn't say at the top, which is kind of fun. But there's quite a lot here. We can. This Best Friends one by Misha Mansour is also quite bright. It's using a Mesa Trad with a SM7B, which I think is where the brighter notes are coming from. Yep. And then there's a Marshall AV. I'm not actually sure half of these stand for. But what's nice is you can just load one plugin for your amp sim, turn off the cabinet, and then load in this plugin, and then you get stereo image. So one thing that I know I'm like going over each recording as I level, but one of the things I'm trying to like really get across and also practice is gain staging is kind of the most you should have to mix. Like if your recordings are already sounding good, if you have good timing, and if your raw recordings are kind of pre-processed, you've already gone through editing, you've already maybe even compressed a few things, you can get really far. Catharsis does have really great free IRs. The reality is you should probably not pay too much for cabinets unless this is just like refined and the work has gone in to pre-EQ it so that all you have to do is drop it in and play, which is ideal. I don't want to spend years finding my favorite cabinet, and I probably have like 1,000 cabinet IRs now over the years, and the reality is like I just need to reach for one if someone's hiring me to play something, or if I really want to write a song and I have this great idea and I don't want the quality to sound really weird. So that's just how my philosophy has been shaped lately. And everyone's gonna have a different thought on cabinet sounds, but at the end of the day, I'm just trying to make the songs come out. So otherwise, I would probably have a different approach. So let's continue to fire off. So bass. Bass recording, I use my Dingwall NG3. It is beautiful. I just got it, and I really like. I really like how this thing sounds in general, but also it's very versatile. So it's gonna be a little quiet. Okay, so this is the raw sound. And obviously, like, I cranked it up so that you could hear it, but that's gonna get into clipping and all that. So recording your bass DI or dry is fantastic and a really important part of kind of getting, just making sure that your tone is going to be pretty solid out the gate. The way I would kind of describe getting a good bass tone is to match the guitars in the areas you need. Get it bright enough to where you can dial it down later, and then don't bloat it. Don't feel like you have to crank every knob and make your bass super loud to start, especially when recording at home. Because we're talking about recordings, I don't necessarily need to get into everything else, and all of these are just like MIDI instruments in the synth category. So the way I would say I'm taking care of them for this like little practice mix is they're not as important, and I want them kind of out of the way. So stereo wise, they can be quite wide. So I'm gonna put like the strings at maybe 60%. And the way we can kind of widen, like this is a really cheap, this is Expand 2 for all the instruments. This isn't meant to be good, so it's going to be in the background. But again, remember, in the 80s, everyone had horrible, cheap samples and they made hits. So what can we do? And I'm using a plugin called Fast FX Finder. It allows me to just hit Control Space or any hotkey you want and then pull up your presets. And your effects. So really helpful for After Effects users like me who already use an effects browser. So I'm going to use this free plugin called Stereo Width. It's actually like a Reaper built-in one by Stillwell. I can just do wide boost. and just pull it down from the center like 6 dB each way. And now it's much wider and out of the way. I can kind of do the same for synth as a bus and just take care of this. So all I have here is an EQ. This is cutting out some of the mids because that's where our guitars lie and the lead voice lies. I'm also going to do a high pass or a low cut in my EQ program. This is Q3 by FabFilter. And now that the bass is really loud, everyone can hear it. Actually, thanks for stopping by, Don't Run Off. Hope you have a good rest of your day. So yeah, now we're gonna dial this back a little bit. And let's see. I also didn't again. So yeah, I'm just gonna normally I'm really good with cutting now, but it's really important to just get stuff out of the way. Anyway, yeah, so that's the synthesizers that I have. So going from the top to the bottom, I'm just gonna kind of run through what I did for the drums as a preset, and then kind of get to where we're going. Now, a lot of people have seen mixers mix with a compressor on top. It's called top-down mixing. It's kind of like getting to where you want your mix to sound the whole time, and I do think it's useful, but I do think what's more useful is everything I explained before. So I will do this, and I'm also going to add let's see, I'm gonna make the mix a little bit brighter just because it's never as commercially bright as I'd like it, and I'm just gonna use a preset I've stolen somewhere. We'll see how this goes. So what I did just now is basically I listened to my mix with a compressor on top of it. And if you don't know, a compressor is meant to compress, basically let less volume through. And the way I think every single person who has never touched a compressor should approach it is just do this. And kind of understand what's the quality of the music when you really just destroy it. And then now you'll understand on a smaller scale what it's doing. So I've been instructed by many people kind of aim to have that snare drum drive what's called gain reduction, or every time you're actually hitting the compressor. So the threshold is at what point do we start smushing this thing a little. The ratio is how much we're smushing it, 4 volume to 1 actually getting out. So if I have like 20 to 1, just picture like an even stronger door, not letting out any of that volume, and so on. And then attack release are of course different speeds here. And by having it very fast, we're not going to have like a very smushy quality to the compression, which can be very messy. This is a Slate Digital bus compressor. It's going to be a little bit more, I guess it's always intended for top end. So the speeds here are like 0.1 to 100, but I do like the quality that it just imparts so far. Any compressor will still do the same thing. It just may not impart different harmonics or specifically like affect EQ the same way as one of those that's modeled after real hardware. And that EQ I added here is just like a really nice big boost around 5,000 and around the low end. But now we need to kind of get closer to the sound we want. So I'm going to show you what I have for my drum kit. We have a gate for the kicks here. Let's take off everything one by one. So that actually sounds kind of nice as is. So this is a kilohertz gate. It comes with slate. You can use RIA gate. It doesn't matter. It's a gate. It is stopping noise. Anyone who's ever streamed should know what a noise gate is. But essentially, I'm just dialing it back so that... So if I put it way up here, or sorry, if I bring it really low, it's going to stop any sound that's below that. So I had it around here. And what this really means, like, why are we using a gate at all? It's just so that after we hear the punch, the lingering sound isn't going to, you know, stay in the mix and, you know, make a mess where you'll just hear like ding, ding, ding. It's hard to convey, but it's important to get that sound actually very, very clean. And if you print out or like just look up a raw recording of a drum kit, we're still trying to get it carved out the way we like. So this, I just made it really punchy on the high end, and I cut out some of the mids. And I pulled out little frequencies so that the shape would still kind of fit in other instruments. And that's pretty much everything for the kick drum except for a compressor, which will give you the punch you need. So I borrowed some of these effects here. But we have a shimmer, which is, this is just a high shelf EQ. Again, it's analog emulating. This is a tube simulation of a preamp, so you can get like more saturation. And if we listen to exactly what's happening, which is the delta function in Reaper, we're literally adding that little foot, which is really cool. And likewise for this brightness here, it's only affecting that high end. Now we combine these. Now you can start hearing a lot more is going on with the kick drum in terms of what's being affected. And then next, we have this opto compressor, which is a different kind, and it's meant to be ultra fast. So this is just like, it's not even going to carve your sound anymore. It's about like controlling the volume. And the gain reduction, or how much it's actually affecting your track, it's like 5 dB at most, based on these controls, and a pretty heavy ratio. But the end result is quite powerful. Now for the dreaded snare. So let's take a listen to the snare on its own. This is what you actually get. And you'll be like, okay, that's something. Now, people who use presets in their drum machines and similar things, they're going to probably get a much better sound out the gate than if you just leave this, because there's like no compression and there's no equalization to get this leaping out. So we have virtual mix rack again. This is just doing a little bit of tape saturation, but it's pretty strong. So what comes out of the recording is like a really bitey sort of sound. My EQ, I've tried to like look up different people's snare recommendations, and I followed the literal tutorial for this drum sampler. And this just gets a little bit of carving around some of this like upper mids, sort of 400 and 800. And if I turn these off, you get like more of that resonating frequencies that are in the way of the guitar and the vocals or whatever your center thing is. So, and then a little bit of brightness. Next, I'm using a very powerful tool that isn't always, you know, well known, I think, when you're starting out, a transient shaper. Transients, of course, are the actual waves, and to increase the attack quality, you know, how bitey, how snappy, it's pretty amazing. So this is 8%, and the sustain is 8%. So if you use one of these, you can actually really control the sound of your snare better than almost anything. it sounds like a compressor almost. And then you can actually use a pump and really highlight just the transient, as they say. So using this instead of a heavy compressor can actually be kind of fun and a little bit more fine-tuned, I guess. Then we have just a 4-1 compressor here, full mix, and so what I've done here is I'm getting about 7 dB of gain reduction. We should listen to it in the full mix. But basically I dialed back the mix knob here so that the raw sound will come through, and when we're compressing and smushing stuff down, I kind of think of it like the sound is coming through a little bit, like it's breaking through a little bit when you let go of the mix knob. And just a little bit of brightness with this lift, which is just basically a high shelf, and then a little more saturation, and that's it. So now I also sent the snare drum to this snare verb, and this is just reverb on the snare drum, and then an EQ to cut off the low end. And I'm actually going to change that to a high pass. I really don't want any like bassiness. And if you listen, cool. And now it just feels like a little bit more lively. The drums occupy more space in the mix, and that can be kind of fun. Next, we're going to do overheads. Over here, we have an EQ. I'm just cutting off anything below 300. And because this is a pre-processed drum library, it's not raw drums. So all I'm worried about is like too much kick drum and snares popping through that we don't need, or toms. Hello, Joe. How are you doing? So just as an example of the difference, and I could do more, but because I'm going for like this kind of cheesy rock type of mix instead of like a very surgical metal thing, I think this is a better approach to get something like a little bit more rugged and raw. This is Get Good Drums Periphery 5. Thank you for asking. And I'm running it through Contact 7, of course, and yeah, it's just the Wildfire preset with everything turned off. No effects inside the Get Good Drums. Hey, Saria. I'm doing well. I just moved across the country. Hope you're doing well as well. Yeah, so getting to overheads, we have EQ here. A little bit of a cut around the cymbals, which actually one great thing about Pro Q3 and most reverbs, we can actually listen to what is going on here. So some people would call that the delta, but it's basically what you're subtracting, and you can hear it. So if you hate it, you know that you're getting rid of it, which is really nice here. And as you search for the right spot, this is where maybe like some of the top end of the guitar can resonate too, which can be really useful. And then for drums, again, following the same tutorial, but many people don't know about these tutorials. There's a limiter on the toms, so if you listen here, they're already quite cut out. When I mix acoustic drums that people have recorded, that's a fun one. All right, so far that's 2 for YouTube. How do I... 24 hours. If you come back and you see something nice again. See how that goes. Yeah, so for toms, normally if you record acoustic drums, they resonate, they're like boomy, and they get in the way of a mix sounding like clean and clear. which is a quality I'm usually trying to go for. So with sampled toms, like let's take a listen to Phil. So just, and it's done. Like the volume has already subsided and we get a very clean mix this way. So I'm just using Pro L because I have it and it's a limiter. You can use literally any other limiter. There's a lot of ways we could mix toms though, so let's explore a few other options. So one thing we could do is just take FabFilter. We could take FabFilter Saturn, which is a distortion plugin, which is a horrible way to describe it. It can do so much, but it is a distortion plugin. And we could kind of like trim down the frequencies that could really get like a snappy, bright, sort of tapey sound, and just like... Let's like loop that. Come on. Be nice. It wouldn't surprise me if we somehow crash. There we go. Let's try tube. And okay, before everyone leaves stream, so I kind of like that. I don't mind them being a little more recessed, but it would be nice if they were a bit more energetic. So yeah, we can keep that, and we can still put the limiter on. Yeah, I kind of like the sound of them being limited. It means that we'll still hear some of the raw quality of the quieter parts, and then just that sort of like bricked sound at the top will be really nice. Did you get a PRS in the Anxiety music video? Yes, I have a PRS now. I've had it for a while. This is the last guitar I bought before my big move. It's the newer version of the Mark Holcomb, and it made it in the move okay. But yeah, it's a fantastic guitar. It's the only blue guitar I have. Probably will stay that way, but yeah, appreciate you checking out the Anxiety video. I realize I'm streaming on my YouTube channel and I'm talking like no one's seen my videos or ever heard of me, but that is often how how it is, especially with just the quantity. But yeah, fantastic guitar. I would honestly say like that's one of my favorites to play, but I'm keeping it in drop C, so I don't actually need it every time, which is unfortunate, but it's quite good. Last, we have room microphones. They're microphones placed in the room of the drums. You get a little bit of the ambiance, but also you get a really great way to control some of the dynamics with it. You can hear more of the cymbals, and you get a very good consistent like sustain of the drum kit always going on. So I have the transient shaper. This is another trick I got from the tutorial that I just liked. And where is it? One trick is also, nope, okay, that's fine. So I could use more room. So I'm gonna see if I can bump up the volume just across different instruments. That's fine. And again, I'm working to consolidate it so that when we're just mixing drums and guitars and bass, it becomes just way easier and simple a choice. I want drums and bass and guitars to kind of just be one simple sandwich here. So that's basically what I have for drums. Now the last thing I definitely want to do is compress the entire kit together. This way none of the parts of the kit are leaping out in crazy amounts, and we just get that nice processy punchy sound. I don't think I have a preset now, but we're gonna use this distressor emulation plugin. I literally have no knowledge on this. What's happening? Yeah, dude, that's what this is for. Ask questions. If you're looking to make music. New Jay, great to see you. And yes, this is much more advanced than my Mixcraft guide, but I wanted to make sure I was still doing stuff. Are you still doing well, making music? It makes me really happy to see folks that I've seen literally like for over 10 years, because a lot of people end up stopping making music, or you don't know how people have kept up necessarily, but a lot of folks do. But yeah, so we're gonna ignore that. I'm glad. And again, please ask questions. I get much more to talk about and explain with questions, so I'm more than happy to share why I do something or how to do something, or just like references for other mixes that I like, or channels to check out. But anyway, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure our drums sound very punchy and upfront through what's called parallel compression. So what that means is we're taking our music, and here it is, it's in a box, and then we're going to also kind of copy it over to a different box that gets beaten up and smushed and compressed really hard, and we're going to blend a little bit of that smushy, punchy sound into the regular drums, so it still sounds kind of natural, but it's going to be much stronger that way. So we're going to have fast attack, and then maybe fast-ish release, and then we're going to use these high pass controls so that we only smush the main part of the kit. We don't need like the bass or the kick drum as much. Hey, piano for you is fantastic. A lot of people don't play instruments and want to, and to have played piano myself for quite a while, on and off, it's a really great instrument to start on, or just to be passionate about. So here's the question you probably need to ask. What the heck is this doing? So hear that terrible sound? That's your parallel compressed drums. Now, this is what it sounds like normally because of this. And let's turn it off. It's fine. Now, a lot of people, including me, will also listen to stuff like this and be like, I literally can't hear the difference, and that's okay. You actually have to like do this for a long time to start picking up on subtle things, and at the end of the day, some stuff you also just can't hear the difference, so you can turn it off. Don't do stuff just because you feel like you have to. I kind of hate the horns right now. Sorry, I just shuffled a lot of my windows. I thought it would be funny, and also I just messed up. So basically, that's as far as I personally feel like the drums have to get. We could add some EQ modules. These are all just different gain knobs to different parts of the frequencies. The bright treble-y part, the bassy part, and everything in between. So the next thing I think is worth mixing here, and sorry I'm shuffling again, is probably the bass. So we're just going to get rid of the guitars for a sec, and let's go over what I recorded again, but more so why, like, what we're doing. We're making a bass guitar track sound good. So I have 2 copies here. This is a common technique where, and I'm going to glue these, you play the guitar, the bass guitar, and you copy the part onto a separate track. So now we can hear the original performance with nothing going on. And it sounds fine. It actually sounds good. If your bass isn't going to sound good, what does that mean? It probably means that it doesn't fill out all the frequencies that you're hoping that your bass guitar will. And in a rock mix, we often think of bass being just in the bottom, and it is, but it also fills out a lot of the middle frequencies that your guitars are. It's really blending quite nicely, at least to my ideal mix that way. So, based on all of that, what we can do is let's turn on some of the effects that I have here. This one is an Arcadia U7. It's based on like a preamp, I believe. And this plugin is actually really cool. It's designed by my buddy Joe Calderone. It's his own company, Joe Calderone Audio. He plays bass in Arch Echo. He is really cool. And what this does sonically for the bass is it boosts the volume, of course, in a very like pleasing way, and it also brightens it up a little bit. And might keep the high cut on. This tone knob also helps carve like how bright you want it, and I like my bass pretty bright because I like my bass parts and I kind of want them to cut out a little bit, and we fill out that space pretty well. And the guitars, the rhythm guitars, are all Stratocasters, so they're a little bit brighter. They're not like 7-string genty down-tuned stuff, so they're actually going to occupy a space that's a little bit higher up. So a full bass is just a good idea to me. The next thing is this free plugin. You can check out reapertips.com and this bass professor, and a lot of really great free plugins are talked about there. And this is kind of like, in my mind, a bass guitar like all-in-one pedal. So it does a lot of cool things, but I basically like loading it in. The professor is kind of like the volume, and the gain is like dirt here. So we're gonna have to bring down the volume a little bit because I'm clipping. Why are we clipping so much? Oh, it's probably the... So this is an important lesson for me, of course. Check if you're clipping inside your plugins, even if you're not clipping in here. Yeah, I found learning guitar, and after 2 years, I'm going to start learning bass when you get one. Very cool. Now, a lot of people I know have learned guitar and then dropped it in favor of bass, hoping it would be easier, and it kind of is, but I like always stress, follow the instrument that you actually like, because both of them are really hard, and also they get easier every single day that you just touch the thing. I taught guitar for a while, and a lot of the students that like went on to keep playing and stuff eventually got a bass too, and then eventually they just learn how to play both. They're fantastic instruments, but yeah, you can do anything if you want to play the guitar, if you want to play the bass and stuff, and they all have really great functions. If you learn bass, you'll join a band. I guarantee you can join a band very comfortably. But anyway, so I ran this bass professor with a little bit of EQ, and then I have this Ampeg amp simulation by Brainworks. It's part of the Plugin Alliance purchase, so you can get these in like a huge bundle for like $100. And basically what this does is it pretends to be an amp, and then you get this more rounded out full kind of sound that I really like. So it's kind of like, it's good right now, but it's not filling out the low end. And that's pretty great for like an aggressive but cleanish amp sound. And that's what it would sound like, you know, like if it were live in my mind, but also perfect. Next, we're gonna have a distorted layer, and this kind of helps blend with distorted guitar more. And I'm gonna take off parallax here. So let's start with Virtual Mix Rack. And this is a preset I've stolen. This is a really strong compressor. Yeah, now it's doing something. And I'll even take off some of the low end here. So why compress the bass? Again, is we want this nice even brick. The dynamics of bass in rock music for me is when you stop playing. So dynamics can come in here, you know. So that's all good. Then I have a preset here with this very confusing console, but it's basically just a mix of EQ and compression to kind of cut out some of the middle frequencies. And then last, there's an EQ here. This one's just to brighten it up. I honestly don't think we need that. So what I'm gonna put next is kind of an all-in-one. And this one's also by Joe Calderon. It's called Quad Bass, and it's a fantastic suite. And I think there's gonna be a new UI coming soon, so it's not as scary. But basically, this is a plugin that's similar to Parallax. It's a bass all-in-one. Compression, EQ, but also distortion. I'm using a Dingwall. This is a Dingwall NG3 5-string bass. And I got this somewhat recently, but definitely before my move. I don't film myself playing bass very often. I don't think it's very efficient because I'm a guitarist first, but I love this bass and it is fantastic. So I recorded this bass again before the stream started. I recorded everything before on purpose. But yeah, so this plugin basically has everything dialed in, and it's a little bit more of a realistic distortion, and it has a really nice amount of control for each of our bands. Let's call them the absolute lowest bass parts and the low mids. So let's take a listen. We don't necessarily need all that bass because we have another track covering it. I really like that like Godzilla sounding tone. So yeah, I did have a yellow Dingwall. It's an NG2 model, so it had a little bit of a worse passive sound, which was really annoying to me. But honestly, like I don't think I knew enough about other people playing Dingwalls, where to get the strings and the setup done. So I was kind of mixed on owning it for a while, and I couldn't use it for jazz and stuff and collaborations because of the worse passive mode. So I was kind of like so-so on the pickup setup. So I sold it to my buddy Mason, who ended up using it on some really cool soundtracks, and I think he's selling it now as well. So hopefully it's going to a good home, someone who can record with it. And then I actually still have an Ibanez headless bass that I've used up until basically deciding that the Dingwall sound is still better. And then I ended up moving into playing with the... well, this Dingwall, and now we need to sell that Ibanez headless. So hopefully I'll make a reverb page or something. But yeah, this Dingwall is just, I mean, it's very similar to the sound of the old one, but it is a little bit better in pickup choices, and the range just feels a little bit better. Yep. I don't have that one handy, but there are headless basses. There's been some since the 80s, but this is an Ibanez, so it's quite popular. Very good for travel. And yeah, like the tuning is still super stable. Probably more stable than traditional. So it's a pretty fantastic bass. It's just not a dingwall. It doesn't have the same characteristic or sound. And I'll use this compressor to kind of just like... Hey, Blue Star Mako. I know I'm streaming. Like after like, I don't know, 2 years or something. Probably less. But I've also never streamed on YouTube. Since like 2018, I think. But I've been told it's better. We've had 2 bots in here. So it feels about the same as streaming on Twitch. But I guess it'll be better because it'll drive people to watch my YouTube channel, which makes more sense. Yeah, it's kind of fun, honestly, like just to try a different avenue and relearn how to like set up all the splits and stuff. And I haven't gotten to stream anything, let alone this is also different room. And yeah, there are headless guitars. I haven't tried too many, but the Strandberg brand is probably my favorite kind of headless guitar I've held. But Aristides has a headless line. Ibanez has a headless line. A lot of guitars are just headless. I don't have any headless guitars over here right now. They all have heads. And then, of course, this is my my trusty Abasi, which I've pretty much played the most right now. And it actually has like a little bit of war damage on the back now, which I don't know if I can show it in the camera too well, but it just means it's getting actual use. It's been on a few VGM convention stages now, and that kind of makes it more meaningful an instrument for me. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, Mako. But yeah, I have 2 Abasis. I feel like some people forget, but I don't always use both in the same video, or I'll just use one and not the other. But this is my 8-string, which is also fantastic, and it's like the only 8-string guitar I've played so far that I liked. Partially in tone, but also just the feel. But yeah, I very much enjoy this, and I recommend Abasis to anybody. But especially, like a lot of people say they didn't like the neck or something to start, and I'm like, get used to it. It's not always for everyone, but I do think it's more capable for this style of music. So that's kind of what drives my preference. Okay, so getting back to mixing, because I'm starting to want dinner. So for bass, let's see how we can even out compressing it first. And I'm going to speed up the release and attack, and what you'll end up hearing is like, I'm trying to get it to sound kind of like a brick. And I think we probably need to EQ the bright thing. Thing is price. Do you mean the price is very high? Because yeah, $2,000 for a guitar is it's certainly not cheap. Now I wish I could call it expensive in the grand scheme of instruments, but I've seen some pretty crazy guitars, let alone you know, other instruments just start really high. So like 3 or 4 of my guitars cost the same as like one reasonably good trombone or any other instrument, of course. So let's see, we're gonna EQ, and I'm gonna bring this EQ down to like 40 hertz. That's where I just know bass guitars end up living elsewhere. Yeah, again, so I started on a Squier Strat, which was a gift. Most of my guitars were gifts, but I was working like in high school. And then once I went to college, I started like pretty much just buying my own, of course. And I had an Ibanez RG that was like a $300 guitar. In retrospect, borrowing instruments is probably the number one thing I should have done. Number two, really, really aggressively learn how to set up your guitars to your preferences. And three, buy used. You don't need to buy a brand new spanking cheap guitar. You can buy $1,000, like $1,000 guitar for like $500 if you look, and you're lucky enough. And those are perfectly good. The effort to make one video is crazy. Well, this one's definitely probably not going to get a video just because I don't think it's very interesting a cover, and I can't license this one, so I won't make any money off of it. And I do have to focus on those right now because music is right now my job. So, but I do appreciate and agree. Making a video for me will take about, an hour of editing for a quick one, and filming. Like, if anyone's seen my new Final Fantasy VII theme, please go check it out. We shot it with a drone and cameras, and we went out to a park. That takes planning. So that was like, 3 hours of work just on the video side, and the mix itself took many iterations. So I'm always extra pleased when folks hear that. You can borrow guitars. You can borrow guitars from friends, maybe even from certain stores, or you can just, everyone has kind of different resources. I didn't know any other guitar players around me for a while, so now I live near a lot of my friends and bandmates and whatnot. So if I needed a guitar that was, specific for a cover, I will. There's actually one really, really, really cool collaboration coming out with my buddy Colby. That's going to showcase one of the rarest, coolest guitars. He owns two of them in particular, and I'm borrowing one of them at his suggestion for this video. So I'm like super excited for when that comes. He has not shot, I think, any videos on like his YouTube channel with this guitar, nor has he gotten to play with it live. So I think people will really enjoy that, hopefully. Okay, hold on. We're supposed to be working and EQing. None of my hotkeys are working for this. So, like, I can tell that area is a little bit... So what I'm doing here is I'm just EQing out frequencies that, for example, here, we don't need it. The guitars are covering it. Here, they're just really spiky and gross. And you can literally see it in the EQ, or you can hear it out, of course. And it's still a little inconsistent. So I'm going to try to use what's called a multiband compressor. Yeah, the cymbal chokes, they're very fun. I didn't want the cover to be so simple that, like, we don't cover all sorts of interesting mixing scenarios. So I did want to put in a few cool ideas, but the mix that I'm most proud of right now, I don't think I could stream it. It's too intense with all the effects on the CPU. Now we're going to use something called sidechain compression. And basically, we just ask another instrument to tell the bass to be quiet. And that other instrument is the kick drum. So every time we have a kick, we'll tell the bass to go down, and then it'll come back up. And you hear this a lot in EDM, but you hear it in metal. It's just very quick and a lot more subtle. So, yeah, now... Oh, there we go. so now we have bass covered, and we can check out the guitars. Guitars, the less processing I have to do, the less EQ and stuff, I think the better they'll just sound overall. So what we can do is, of course, the recordings. And for some reason, the left side is louder, and I don't like that, so I'm gonna see if that's a cabinet thing. There we go. So yeah, it's already sounding pretty good. So I don't have too much I actually really want to add. I'm gonna add an EQ as a fail-safe, let's call it. And what this will do is control the frequencies from getting too bassy. And I feel like 60 hertz is probably fine. Here, I'm gonna do 8,000 because that's like a habit of mine. I'm just gonna cut out some of the high end that I don't love. By doing a little bit of EQ work and bringing those rhythm guitars back, they won't blur out the lead guitar as much. And especially for like this, they're kind of like funk rolls. Whereas the lead guitar, a little bit trickier. So I'm gonna try to bring down some of the low end and make it a little bit brighter. So that warbly sort of mid-heavy sound, I maybe don't want that as much. Yeah, that horn is annoying. And then last thing I'll add, maybe like tape saturation, so we can use Fab Filter Saturn again. So yeah, not bad. And it kind of just warms up the whole thing. And by that I mean we don't necessarily hear as much super bright stuff, which is definitely what I want. So, let's see. Now, one trick many people will also mention that I would be remiss not to is in Reaper we have a mono button, so you can listen to your mix in mono and kind of just hear how the frequencies are and some of the levels. I'm very curious what happens when I do this because I'm using an ultra wide and I don't know if like my screen is just like dying for people when I use my like mix layout preset. I basically just stretched out all of these things and I like tucking them away like this. So no dropped frames. It just says encoding is overloaded. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so one of the next things I guess we can do, just going down the list, is we have all of our guitars now mixed. We have our bass mixed, our drums are kind of internally mixed, and that's kind of what I mean. We have all the tracks basically internally mixed. Let's see what it is. These are just the MIDI that we don't need anymore. So let's go into our mix bus. And what a mix bus is, of course, is for the band, what are the effects that we want to apply to get this to sound the way we want. So we're going to be making more broad movements. We can do this like warm tape again, just to have tape saturation. And sometimes I like having a multi-band compressor here, but I'll just control some of the areas that I find are too boomy. So that's a lot of like low mid build up and mud that we can kind of control. It's also kind of helpful for me when I listen to a mix again, and kind of just adjust the volumes. I'm gonna actually put this multi-band here too. Okay, and now all together with the effects and everyone, I like adding one of these fancier compressors, and this one has a lot of fun presets, including like mastering presets that you can kind of just throw on. So this has different kinds of compressor styles, optical and discrete. So if I use that one, a stereo, that way it'll compress everything kind of together for me. You can adjust the threshold just like we did with the bus and further compress it at a much subtler, more speedy level. Or just destroy it. And then, yeah, that's one way to compress it again. Some people like using imagers. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I always forget to use them. And I don't always think they make a huge difference, but basically this divides up your frequency areas. We can do standard 4, and then you can adjust the placement. So So this just makes the song wider in some ways, and also controls where the mess is going. So there's not too much else, but there is one plugin that I have to celebrate here, which is Soothe, and it basically does like a very, very, very fine compression. I think is a compressor, but like the name says, it's meant to soothe frequencies that are building up. Without making things sound terrible. So I like using some of these master presets, especially when my mix is like near done. We can kind of hear little bits of differences in the high end and in the low end. I'm going to increase my block size real quick, so this might stutter the stream. All right, so it's kind of hard to demonstrate what this does, so let's go extreme and just ruin the mix. Cool. So again, the reference in my mind is like if we were listening to a guitar virtuoso like lead guitar performance or something like bandy. It's not necessarily going to be as pristine as like having multiple layers and like a long-term project. This is a song I made before the stream, but these techniques that we're using here for mixing and listening and stuff, that's the whole point of this one. I'd love to have some folks send in like a VGM collab or something where they have live drums, something where they were kind of not in over their head, but it was difficult enough to where maybe it would be a fun look at, something that could be really helpful for other folks getting into producing their own stuff. So the last thing we put is a limiter, which limits the volume. Quite literally, it's a super strong compressor, and this gets it up to the volume that we need for like radio and YouTube. So we lift up the volume, and then when it hits here, we get gain reduction, and I'm trying to shoot for around like 2 to 3 dB at most. Then we can do oversampling, which just copies the effect and finds the differences so that we have a smoother sort of sound. And we can add dithering, of course, so that when it creates a master, they fill in the cracks of the bits, I think. God, dithering, I don't even understand. But our goal here, again, is just to get it loud enough to where it's an acceptable mix. So what I'll do is I'll print out this mix, and then we can take a listen together. I don't like this being so bright, so I'm gonna dial that down. Oop, did we lose? Nope. Alright, we're gonna render this real quick. Yeah, it's a bold move. All right, so I'm gonna make sure we can actually hear this, and I'm hoping it won't double. But let's take a listen to the mix, and all right. So again, made this in 30 seconds. The changes I would make recording wise, I would totally get rid of a lot of those crappy synth organs and midis and change them out to something kind of performed. I do think that like there's something lacking about the drum punchiness that I would probably up. I'd probably sample layer maybe like the kick drums so they'd be rimmier. But this is a healthy part of like the reflection in the mixing process. And for albums, I always take a pen, piece of paper, and listen at a lowish volume and kind of accumulate thoughts to the next iteration. So the reason why this probably won't come out on YouTube is because this was actually kind of hard to play. It was a little too flickety and fast. And yeah, I couldn't come up with ideas past like a minute 20. But that's kind of how I feel about this one. But chat, what are your thoughts? And Taryn, I would love that. If enough people are interested, and maybe if I get cleaned up, because this room is not set up at all, I would be more than happy to go over some of my studio stuff. The other thing is it's kind of like just a show-off thing, so I would love to tie it in with a Q&A, like my friend Patty did. Because, yeah, otherwise it's just like, look how much money I've spent on guitars I don't necessarily need. But for now, again, the instruments I've got around here, let's see if I can. We've got the Dingwall, the bass, the Bossy. This is my Strat with an Evertune bridge. It's made in Mexico. It is wonderful, very stable. Hey, Ian. Then the other guitars I didn't show on stream, this is my Wolfgang Van Halen in Half Step Down, very sentimental guitar now. And then I just have one extra Strat. That's my first Strat that I bought myself. So always wonderful to just kind of have that. I don't really have a reason to zoom it in, honestly. But yeah, so reflecting on that mix, that's kind of what we've taken this song in just 2 hours to. Would be cool to do instrument comparisons sometime in the market for. Yeah, I still have instruments I need to sell off. But yeah, every single guitar here is in my YouTube channel in a video. So if you haven't seen it, there's probably some videos you maybe didn't see from a while ago. But nowadays, I try to arrange everything for a Bossy tuning. I also have my Ernie Ball Majesty, but it definitely needs like a new setup, and the electronics have kind of gone sour for one of the more advanced features. I gave it to a local shop that everyone recommended, and they ruined it. So I gotta get it fixed. So I'm hoping to do that soon. But yeah, I would love to do some sort of easy studio tour of the guitars. And Allison and I both have a lot of instruments accumulated together. So yeah, that might be something worth delving into. But of course, we just went over all the software, and luckily no one asked me about the plugins too much. So I'm glad people are more interested in like the actual physical instruments, as am I. Oh yeah, and then I have my Taylor Acoustic here, which is one of my favorite guitars now as well. Yes, that's something I want to talk about sometime as well, Ian. So I have 4 sitars right now. One of them has to be kind of thrown out or given to a home for someone to experiment with. And then the rest of them all have guitar tuners, but they all stay in one sort of tuning because the mentality around that instrument is completely different than Western. But I need them in like one key, basically C, and that's like it. That's my C sitar, C sharp and D. That's basically what they are right now. They're like D, C sharp, C, and all. But with the other guitars, most of my arrangements and live stuff is now in drop A on a 7-string, so standard, which means I can play anything, and then a low A, which means I can play my music and the songs I've written. So it's very comfortable, and I think I'm a very like function first. I wouldn't want to have my main guitar be in a weird tuning that I can't keep up with. And then I have a half-step guitar and a drop C guitar over there. And then my Strat, I think one of my older Strats maybe is half-step as well. But again, some of them are for noodling. But yeah, it's always good to just kind of have them. And then the bass, of course, is in drop A. And yeah, like the bass, we have our Ibanez headless right now, and it probably could use like a little bit of a tune-up, but right now it's in drop A, and it's fantastic for that. I don't think I would ever go lower than A on it because of the scale length and just like the way the pickups are tuned. But even keeping it in, like the way it is, it's pretty comfortable. As long as you keep the upkeep, and then mentally, like you have to remember where all your, your notes are for different tuning. But a lot of people just adjust to that, and it's really cool. But yeah, so I think that's just about everything. Does anyone have any last mixing questions before I end this? And I will keep this on my YouTube channel as a sort of backup. So if you want to see like kind of how I approached mixing Get Good drums, how I approached leveling before we mixed, getting all the recordings and stuff, that's all going to be kind of there. Do you use an amp modeler? Yes. So I answered this at the beginning. I prefer recording hardware. It's a little bit more unique a sound, and everyone right now online in like the modern guitar circles tend to use the same exact program. So everything's starting to sound similar, and there's also a lot of fun to be had choosing like your own amps and dialing it in. So this is my live rig. It's a Fractal FM3. I normally record with an Axe-FX 3 that I have in my rack that I can't really show right now. That's usually my favorite way to go, but for recordings where I really need like pristine sounds, I do use the neural archetypes. I only have 2. I don't think you should buy more than 2. Unless they sponsor me, then you should buy all of them. But the Nolly amp is really good for high gain and very bitey rock tones. We ended up using this for the Paper Mario track, the lighter amp. I turned off the cabinet and I actually used their brand new GGD Studio Cab Contenders pack, which has just a ton of packs for presets for cabinet sounds, which can really drastically change how easy it is to EQ your guitar amps for songs. So I ended up using just 2 different cabinets, one on the left, one on the right, and my recordings were perfect there. The lead guitar is Archetype Pliny X. He has a tone that I very much like. I've listened to Pliny for over 10 years now. And it's a little bit lower in the gain, just the setup I used, and I used just the built-in cabinet there. So yeah, I usually like having amp modelers. For the bass, we ended up using my friend Joe Calderon's quad bass. That's probably the bulk of the tone, and this is a cheaper plugin than Parallax, but it's very popular. And yeah, it has compression and kind of EQ built in, but it's especially just good for distortion of different styles, not just like high octane distortion. Line 6 Pod Go. So I think I've used one of those before a while back, and they were fine. Again, people can mix with anything. I'm not a huge fan of Line 6 because the one Line 6 product I had broke, which was like their cheap GX model from ages ago. But there are like amazing records that are made with the Line 6 pod X3, I think. So it's a fantastic choice. And if you have hardware, I think that's already more fun than recording dry. The only thing is you can't really change a lot. So for cabinet sounds, it might actually be a good idea to record with the pod like amp and then turn off the cabinets and then use a cabinet that you can choose later, and you can change it later if you're not sure if your mix isn't working yet. There's a lot of choices. I think that's really nice about that. But everyone's different, and someone can mix anything. So whatever people have, I think, is always a good option. There's also the neural amp modeler, which is free now. I don't know how legal that is, but it's fantastic. And there's all sorts of really good free amps now. It's just most of them are aiming at like this modern metal high gain sound. So I think it's great to explore and make sure that you can try all sorts of things, especially if you make a lot of different kinds of guitar music, which is what I kind of consider myself to do. All right, I need to go get dinner, and I'm going to probably stream on YouTube a little bit more often. This was a really great chance to kind of just kickstart the channel because I'm already posting music videos here. So hopefully more of my subscribers and viewers will check it out here instead of telling people to go to Twitch. But yeah, I very much appreciate this. I'm gonna do a few things here because right now, folks might know, I am currently doing music as a freelance sort of full-time interim. So I'm taking on commissions, I'm mixing for other people, I'm editing videos for a lot of people. A lot of my music video skills are going towards other channels. So I have a Discord, of course, and we have a nice intimate-ish corner, and it's active enough to where I'd love to see folks there, especially if you make stuff or ever have questions. I'm going to be streaming community feedback night soon. This is where people from the VGM scene will send in their covers on YouTube, and I will basically host kind of like a feedback session so people can kind of feel encouraged, get ideas of how to improve, and they can specify if they need video ideas or if they need mix help or guitar help or something. And that was received really well during the pandemic, so I'd love to bring it back now. And then, of course, just in general, new music videos are coming out soon. I have a really exciting collaboration from a Pokemon-related song. It's a remake of a video from 10 years ago, I'm sure. 9 years ago? But I think that'll be one of my favorites for a while. I just put out the Final Fantasy VII theme on my channel, so please check that out if you haven't. And stuff is going to come on streaming really soon. I have 2 Hades 2 covers coming out at the end of this month, I'm pretty sure. And I'm definitely looking for requests and commissions, so if you have any song requests or things that you think would be really, really cool to hear, feel free to share them in my Discord.